Hello students and welcome to the e-learning program initiated by Shri Gyanmanjari Vidyapeeth for the students of Standard 9 in which we are learning the subject of English. Students, from the previous few lectures we have started with the revision work of uh, the chapters of the main textbook. So let us go ahead with the revision work. This is the 10th lecture in the revision series. We are doing the revision work of first the BEEHIVE chapters. We have now come to chapter number 4. Today we are going to start with chapter number 4, A Truly Beautiful Mind. It's about Albert Einstein. Things to remember in this particular chapter is uh, we are told in this chapter right from the birth of Einstein till his death. This chapter is not that quite big, so it is not able to accommodate all the things about, all the information about Albert Einstein, but we have few chunks and bits and pieces of the information about the life of Albert Einstein, one of the greatest scientists in the world. So we have to not only memorize the life story of Albert Einstein, because there are lots of years to remember, dates, etc. Some of the important incidents of Albert Einstein's life. Mainly, we are more focused on the achievements of Albert Einstein as a scientist. Now, if we see the life story, Albert Einstein in this particular chapter tells us not only about the great achievements of Albert Einstein, it also gives us an insight on the childhood of Albert Einstein. Then we have the adolescent age of Einstein, teenage age, and then we see him going to the college also. Then we see him as a man struggling to get a job, and side by side he is also doing his research work, his research paper, and then he gets a breakthrough, and because of this breakthrough he becomes quite known in the circles of the scientists as a physicist. Then we have his achievements, his important breakthrough, and then we have a number of series of awards, etc. His theories in physics, which became quite popular and proved to be correct. We also have an insight in the personal life of Albert Einstein. Not only that, we also have an insight in Albert Einstein uh, post World War One, post World War Two also, and we have an insight, or we have some information about Einstein growing up as a major public figure. So we have lots of content in this small chapter, because whole of the life story is contained in two and a half pages. So lots of content is there in the story. So that makes our question and answer more, it has to have more accuracy, because then you have to deal with the sequence of the uh, happenings or incidents, or sequence of the uh, dates, etc. So we have to be quite a lot of, be a little bit more cautious and careful when we are answering questions based on this chapter. So let us start with the chapter. What do you think of when you hear the word genius? Genius word, the first name that comes to our mind is Albert Einstein. So genius and Albert Einstein, they are considered parallel. If you, because we need to give an example. Say when we are saying genius, what, by that word, what comes to our mind? Yes, what qualities do you think a genius person should have? So instantly we come up to a personality called Albert Einstein. You say genius, you say Albert Einstein, it is parallel, it is equal. Such was the character of Albert Einstein, such were the qualities of Einstein, that you can say him as parallel to genius. You say genius or you say Albert Einstein, both the words mean the same. We shall now read about a young German civil servant who took the world by storm about 100 years ago. In the summer of 1905, the 26-old year published in quick succession four groundbreaking papers. So, in this story, we are talking about, of course, we know Albert Einstein, but Albert Einstein born and brought up in Germany. He was a German, and in 1905, he successfully and uh, in quick succession, that means one by one, yes, immediately one after another, he gave four groundbreaking papers. Groundbreaking papers means which reveals quite a lot of important information and which breaks the ground. Breaks the ground means, here it means that the earlier beliefs or the earlier proofs that were available in that particular field of science, by the papers submitted by Albert Einstein, those theories were totally changed from now onwards. Yes, that means nobody earlier believed that such a thing can happen in physics or in science, and this changed the belief. This thing, these four papers, they changed the reality of what we thought and what could be. So that's why they're called groundbreaking papers. Very important information was revealed in these four papers, and at the time the age of Albert Einstein was just 26 years in 1905. Now, what were these four groundbreaking papers were? They were on four different topics. Please remember this. First one was on light. Second was the motion of particles. The third one was electrodynamics of a moving body, and the fourth one was the energy. The concept that the field of science had related with these four topics, that is light, electrodynamics of moving bodies, motion of particles, and energy. The concepts that till so far the people had or the scientists had in mind, or which prevailed in the field of these particular names, they got totally changed, and that is why it's called groundbreaking papers. His work took up only few pages in scientific journal. He did not submit very elaborated or detailed thesis, or you can say quite heavy books, big thick books. No, he just, those research papers were hardly occupying not more than few pages in an scientific journal, but it changed forever. This is the meaning. Changed forever our understanding about three, four things. Yes, because earlier the concepts were different. Earlier the understandings were different. But once Albert Einstein came up with his research paper on these four topics, the total concepts regarding these topics changed. One of that topic is space, another one is time, and the third one is entire cosmos. Not only universe, what lies beyond the universe, whole of this thing we consider as cosmos. So space, time, and entire cosmos, the concepts that we had, the reality that prevailed before Albert Einstein submitted those papers, whole of those concepts, ideas, belief, theories, all of that had to be changed because of the revelations that were done by Albert Einstein, and that changed our ideas and concepts that we had in three of the topics, that is, first is space, second is time, and third is entire cosmos, and transform the name Einstein in a synonymous for genius. 50 years after his death, in 1905, he revealed these four papers, and after quite a long time after that, After all his achievement, Albert Einstein died. But today also, if we say genius, that means Albert Einstein. That means we still do not have anybody else who can replace the synonym for genius, that is Einstein. Albert Einstein's genius still reigns. Reigns means rules. Now, a little bit about his childhood. Einstein was born on, please remember the date, 15th March 1879 in the German city of Ulm, without any indication that he was destined for greatness. Yes, when a child is born, nothing is written over his forehead telling us or informing us that he is a genius, right? So, same way, he was born as a normal child, yes, and looking at him at the time of birth, you can't predict or you can't say that this boy's destiny is made for being a genius. On contrary, when the mother saw the child for the first time, she exclaimed that um, Albert would become a freak because his head was more larger than normal children at the time of birth. The shape of the head should be in uh, good shape with the rest of the body, right? But according to the mother, the head looked more bigger, and that means the child can be a freak or the child can be mentally retarded. That was the own Albert Einstein's own mother's reactions on seeing the child. At the age of 2.5, from the birth we jump to 2.5 years, Einstein still wasn't talking. And that's bad news because children usually they start speaking mama, dada, baba, something in their own language, right? Mother tongue, what the language the father and mother speaks, catches and starts speaking at the age of 10 months, 11 months, maybe 1 year. Some children do not speak for say up till 1.5 year, but this is quite strange because Albert Einstein was not talking even at the age of 2.5 years, and that's quite worrisome for the as the child progresses in relation with or in comparison with other children. Then when the age progresses, the parents become a little bit concerned because rest of the children are talking and they are understanding things. He is also understanding, but he's not talking. So that was quite worrisome. Einstein still wasn't talking. When he finally did learn to speak, he uttered everything twice. That is, he was stammering. He used to speak each and every word twice before going ahead. So when he did learn to speak, Einstein did not know what to do with other children. Yes, he was not a good friend. He did not make friends easily. So he used to remain and he used to play by himself because he did not know how to behave with other children when in a group, how to react, how to mingle and mix with them. So he used to stay aloof, means alone. And what to do with children and his playmates, they called him brother boring because he just used to stand there. He won't listen, he won't do as other friends would say, he won't try to become a leader, he just would not mix with the rest of the, and it was quite boring to have him as a friend. So his friends or playmates used to call him brother boring. So the youngster, he played by himself. Of course, when you don't have any friends and when you can't make friends, when you don't know what to do with children of your same age, then other children will also not allow you to mix with you, and they will just leave you and they'll do, yeah, they're playing whatever they are doing with other children who mix very well, who speak with them, and of course they would fight also again, become friends, but they would play together. Here Albert Einstein is not mixing with them, so he has to play all alone by himself. He especially loved mechanical toys and he used to spend hours and hours on mechanical toys. And one day, looking at the newborn sister, that's Maya, M-A-J-A, J is spelled as Y. So, looking at his newborn sister Maya, he is said to have said, well, very good, it's my sister, but then where are the wheels? Because he was so much attached with mechanical toys. Yes, so each and every toy should mechanical, then it should be working, it should have spherical objects like wheels. So it's a flat body. Of course, a child put on the ground or put somewhere on the bed remains flat, right? So looks like a flat figure and it should have wheels, right? So fine, but where are her wheels? Because he was so much uh, in love with the mechanical toys. Otto, Otto Neuber, the historian of ancient mathematics, told a story about the boy Einstein that his characteristics as a legend, but that seems fairly authentic. As he was a late talker, his parents were quite worried. Now, Roger Bohr, the historian of ancient mathematics, he once commented about Albert Einstein that his characteristics told him that he was a legend, but that's quite opposite because his parents were very worried about him because he was a late talker, and that made the parents quite worried about him. At last, at the supper table one night, he broke his silence to say the soup is too hot. Till the age of 2.5 years he was not talking, but suddenly all of a sudden, yes, and now till 2.5 years nobody, that child is not talking, so everybody will try to poke him or try to get out some words from him. He or they were not successful, right? But all of a sudden he spoke by himself, the soup is too hot. One complete sentence without any mistake, with pure pronunciations, he said those words. So everybody was surprised and everybody asked the same thing. If you knew how to talk, why were you not talking? So he gives a very good reply. Up till now I didn't have any complaints, so I didn't have to talk. Generally, greatly relieved, the parents asked why he had never said a word before. Albert said, because up to now everything was quite okay and quite in order, everything was in place, so there was no complaint, and that is why there was no need to talk, right? So this was his attitude right from the beginning. A headmaster once told his father what Einstein chose as a profession wouldn't matter because he will never make a success at anything. That doesn't tell us that he was a weak student. That doesn't tell us that he did not pay attention in his studies. But because perhaps he did not mingle, he did not ask questions on his own, or did not participate in the classwork, or failed to do homework sometimes, all this tells us that he is not interested in studies, and he is not interested in other things other than studies also. So one of the headmaster must have picked up his attitude and told to his father that whatever profession Albert Einstein goes or picks up, it doesn't make any difference, because whichever profession he goes into, he is not going to make a big success in that because he's least interested in anything. Einstein began learning to play violin at the age of 6, not because he wanted to, but because his mother wanted him to learn violin. At the age of 6, as it's a tradition in those parts of Europe, that it's either piano or it's either violin, so cello. These are the popular instruments of the musical instruments of Europe, and you should be learning them. Uh, the parents make it uh, reason with their children that they should be knowing at least one of the musical instruments. They should be knowing how to play it. The same thing happens over here also. Yes, tabla, harmonium, keyboard, bansuri, flute. All the parents just want their children to know one of the musical instrument, and it's good. In life, you should be learning at least one musical instrument to play with. It suits your body, mind, and it gives you internal peace. It's good for relaxation. It's one of the favorite pastimes. It can be your hobby. Yes, you don't play professional, you don't take money to play on the stage, but then you should know it so that you don't develop it okay as a professional, but it should become one of your hobby to play a musical instrument, so you can use your spare time in playing it and trying to excel in it, and it's a favorite pastime, it's a favorite hobby. More, it gives lots of relaxation, it relieves tension, right? All these things add up. So mother tried to do something good, and that habit stuck to him till his death. He later became a gifted amateur. Amateur is a person who can play or sing or work, but does not do it in a professional way. Is still learning, then that person is called an amateur, right? So he became a gifted amateur. For example, he would listen to some concert, and uh, later on he can play it on his piano. So he is not a professional, but he has learnt it, and it is a god gift, right? So even if he listens to the tune, he can play it on by himself after learning it. That means he is a gifted amateur violinist, maintaining the skill throughout his life, and many a times it must have helped Albert Einstein to concentrate, because once your mind gets relaxed, relieved, and becomes stress free, you can concentrate more on whatever you are doing, whatever work you have at hand. But Albert Einstein, he was not a bad pupil. That we just discussed it. That doesn't tell us. Headmaster told his father that whichever profession he goes into, he won't have much success. But that doesn't tell us that he was a bad student. If he was a bad student, then he wouldn't have become a scientist, because you need to cultivate those habits right from the childhood. So Albert Einstein was not a bad pupil. He went to high school in Munich, M-U-N-I-C-H. It will be written as M-U-N-I-C-H but spoken as Munich. So uh, he went to high school in Munich, where Albert Einstein family had moved when he was 15 months old. No, that will be 15 years old, not 15 months old, right? There's a mistake over here in the book also, and that's why I left it as it is, because this thing is written in the book, right? So up till he completed, or he was still studying in the high school in Munich, where the Einstein's family had moved when he was 15 years old, and scored good marks in almost every subject. That means he was smart. Then only he was good at studies, then only he will get good marks in all the subjects. Einstein hated. Now, Einstein did not hate studies. uh, if we are talking about those days were the time when this new type of education system came into place. It started from England. At the same time, it started in the rest of the parts of Europe also. This system, educational system that we have now, the grade system or the classes system, right? That class 1 age, children of the same age of class 1, they will stay and they will work together and study, and they will give examination and pass on to class 2 or grade 2, and again for 1 year they will study all the subjects of class 2, pass out, and then go to class 3. If anybody is not able to pass out, he will have to remain again in that standard, do one complete year, and then go ahead. So this type of uh, schools came up, this type of colleges came up. Till then, till the time Einstein was going to school, came to college, all these systems were quite well settled for quite a long time and successful. So because we had this system, the um, English type of schooling system, we got established after Britishers came to India, ruled over us for quite a long time, and then introduced this educational system in India. Earlier, we did not also have it. Same way in Europe also, they did not have that schooling system. It got established and settled. People accepted it, and by the time Einstein was Einstein got admission in school for the first time. Till then, the schooling system was quite established. The whole of the educational system still evolving, but the whole of the frame was completely set up. He did not hate studies, but he hated the regimentation of the school. Regimentation, quite strict atmosphere in the school. राइट. अभी तो स्कूल है ही नहीं, राइट, थोड़े दिन के लिए. तो proper uniform, shoes polished, uh, clothes, that is a uniform, neat, clean, ironed, uh, bags, books, studies, everything in order, right? Discipline to be followed strictly. If the discipline is broken at any point, strict punishment was given. Yes, rebuking, scolding, even physically beating up the child, all of that was done. And Einstein hated it, and for this very reason, he wanted to continue his studies, but then he left the studies because of the regimentation. Because then, every now and then, he would take up a fight with the teachers or the principal, etc. So, he got fed up and left the school. At the age of 15, Einstein felt so stifled there that he left the school for good. But he did not give up studies. Later on, he again joined. The previous year, Albert Einstein's parents had moved to Milan and left their son with relatives. The parents moved, but now because his education was going on, so they did not want to shift him to Milan, so they kept the son with the relatives. Now, when they were keeping the son for with the relatives, Einstein argued with his parents to allow him to go to Switzerland, where in Switzerland, a particular area where the Germans were in majority, and he wanted to join a university over there so that all the German speaking people are there and he will be quite comfortable over there because he is also German. So Einstein got his wish to continue his education in the German speaking part of Switzerland, in a city which was more liberal than Munich. Munich, strict regimentation was there, and that's why he did not want to study over there. And lots of liberty and freedom were given in Switzerland, and he wanted to uh, go and study in such a university where lots of people with liberal thoughts had lots of freedom, and that regimentation was totally absent. Einstein was highly gifted. Now we come to the reality. If he was not a good student, how come he got good marks? So he was not only a good student, on top of that he had liking for mathematics and physics. That is how we have Albert Einstein as one of the greatest physicists, right? Because he was interested in mathematics and physics. And after finishing school, he decided to study at a university in Zurich. But science wasn't the only thing that, well, as we discussed, he argued with his parents. After finishing his high school, he went to the university in Zurich, and science was not the only thing that appealed to the dashing young man, because of course he was quite young at that time, and he fashioned or he wore a walrus mustache. The mustache have lots of names and types, the shapes, and walrus is one of the type and shape of the mustache. It's quite thick. He also felt a special interest. So along with mathematics and physics, he felt a growing interest in one of the co-student, that is Mileva Merrick, whom he found to be a very clever creature, because uh, we know we get interested in people where there is a similar liking of interests. So it might be that Mileva Merrick was also quite a clever person, and that is why Albert Einstein got attracted towards Mileva Merrick. Now she was a Serb coming from Serbia, that is erstwhile Yugoslavia, up nowadays a part of Yugoslavia. So earlier Yugoslavia was a complete country, now broken down into quite a small countries. Out of that, Serbia is one of them. So this young Serb had come to Switzerland. The young Serb had left Yugoslavia and came all the way to Switzerland because none of the universities in Yugoslavia gave degrees to women. Men were given admission and men were given degrees. Women were not given education, that is higher education. They were not even given degrees. So this was one of the universities, that is the University of Zurich, which gave degrees to women. So one of the few universities in Europe which gave degrees to the women. Einstein saw in her an ally friend against the Philistines. Who are these Philistines? Example is given. Those people in his family and university with whom he was constantly at odds. Philistines are those people who do not have any love in art and culture and tradition and all that. They are called Philistines. So similarly, in his family also nobody admired art, nobody admired education and all that. So he didn't have anybody at home who could believe in him, who could believe in his ideas, who could believe in his propagations. So here in Mileva Merrick, he found an ally, a friend who was not a Philistine and who had quite a lot of love in arts. So those people in this family and university was constantly at odds. They did not want to come out free from their orthodox ideas and passions and all that. Yes, and here Albert Einstein had a completely different view of the world that was going to come. So he considered all these people Philistines, and Milo Merrick was not one of them. She also had quite bold nature and loved arts and was happy to reveal all that. So in Milo Merrick, he found a very good companion, and both of them fell in love. The couple fell in love. Now, about the love story between Albert Einstein and Milo Merrick. Letters survive. That means people have preserved letters that got exchanged between Albert Einstein and Mileva Merrick before the couple got married, in which they put their affection. Now, love letters are meant for that, to express your love and affection. Mixing science with tenderness, both of them were students of science, so automatically that language comes in the letter, and uh, science got mixed up with love. One of the examples is given: how happy and proud I would be if we both have brought our work together on relativity to a victorious conclusion. Relativity, the relation between us. Now, if the relation between them was love, right? So that is a topic on love. But here, work on relativity. We also know that relativity was one of the subject of science on which Einstein later on proved his ideas, and he submitted his research paper, and that became quite famous. Yes, E is equal to mc square, right? So in that way, science got mixed up with emotions in their letters. This is one of the victorious conclusion. Love should always end in marriage, the couple living together, right? So they're talking about love and marriage, but they are mixing the words of science with that, because conclusion comes in the science. In 1900, at the age of 21, Albert Einstein, he was a university graduate, and just like everybody else, fresh out of college and without any job and unemployed. So he had to do lots of odd jobs for surviving. Teaching assistant, and gave private lessons, that means as a tutor, and finally secured a job in 1902. So for 2 years he did odd jobs all over the place just to survive, and of course you have to earn enough so that you can expend a little bit, right? So for 2 years he moved here and there, did quite odd jobs, and in 1902 he secured a very good job, that is as a technical expert in the patent office in Bern is in Germany, right? And he, in that patent office where ideas will come and they get patented, so he got the job over there. While he was supposed to be assessing other people's inventions, so lots of that was, it was a time when science was at the peak uh, in Europe, England, Europe, and because many people got education, so with the help of education, with their ideas, they came up with lots of invention, and those invention had to come to the patent office to get patented, otherwise your invention will get lost. Somebody else will be making money with your invention and you cannot do anything. If somebody wants to use your invention, then you should get money for your invention. And so he was at the working at the patent office where lots of people they submitted their invention. And it was the work of Albert Einstein to assess the work of invention that came to the office to be patented. Einstein was actually developing his own ideas in secret. He was working on the projects or the inventions submitted by uh, everybody else, right? But he was also working on his own ideas, though he did not invent anything. But then he was growing up with these ideas. He is said to have jokingly called his desk drawer at work Bureau of Theoretical Physics. Now, it's quite simple. Till 10th we are learning all the subject, then we do some a little bit of specialization in 11th and 12th. We either choose commerce, arts or science. Now if we are choosing 11th and 12th science stream, then out of the 3 4 available to us, we have chosen science, yes, and left the others, that is arts and commerce. After we pass out of 12th, then we do more specialization. We either become an engineer, either become a doctor, either we do BSc and go ahead in some uh, other subjects, yes, specialization in other subjects in other faculties, right? Here you can do BSc in mathematics, in physics, in chemistry. After that there are still lots of bifurcations there also. So whatever we study, we put into use in practice and make some invention. So whatever we have studied becomes part of our invention. So that is nothing but the theory putting into practical. So that is what Einstein says. All the inventions that came to him were based on the studies that they had studied in the universities, etc. Right? Bureau of Theoretical based on theories that they have learnt in physics. They did not change the theories. They did not even try to imagine to think about the changes they can do in the theory. Let's not work out the theory and see if it is right or wrong, or try to do some changes in the theory. So if that happens, the invention you have done becomes worthless because it doesn't stick to the reality. Perhaps that invention is quite wrong. So what we learn over here from this particular paragraph is Einstein was supposed to be assessing the inventions made by others. Those inventions were made by the theory that they had learned in the colleges and the universities. They did not try to change the theory. That is what Einstein did. Einstein did not invent anything. He changed the theories. He worked upon the theories. He tried to find out new theories which will totally change the concept of the old theories. One of the famous papers of 1905 was Einstein's special theory of relativity, according to which time and distance are not absolute, right? Now please understand this line. One of the famous papers that were submitted by Albert Einstein in 1905, they were regarding a theory which is special theory of relativity. It says that time and space, they are not absolute. Absolute means they do not come to an end. We know that, yes, आज है, कल है, परसों है, उसके बाद भी एक परसों है, उसके बाद भी एक परसों है. So time doesn't stop. We say 2025, तो 2025 के बाद 2026 है. Same way, distance, हम यहाँ से जुपिटर, तो जुपिटर के बाद भी डिस्टेंस है, राइट? उसके बाद भी हमारा सोलर सिस्टम खत्म होता है तो उसके बाद भी डिस्टेंस तो है. सो यू कैन नॉट से द डिस्टेंस बिकम्स एब्सोल्यूट और इट एंड्स. बोथ ऑफ देम are not absolute. Indeed, and for that he here for our explanation, for our understanding, he gives an example is shown over here. Two perfectly working clock, दोनों को एक टाइम पे सेट करो, both of them are working perfectly. You start them at the same time and you stop them at the same time. Because one clock was working fast, another clock was working slow, did that change the time? Say we stopped it after 1 hour. We were watching in another watch, right? And these two clocks were there, right? So one clock says, suppose we started at 3 o'clock, 3 p.m. in the afternoon, and we stopped the clock at 1 hour later. So one clock, because it is faster, it will show you 10 minutes past 4, whereas one clock was working slowly, which shows you 10 minutes to 4. There is a difference of 20 minutes. Actually, in time, did that difference happen? No, that difference did not happen, right? So please read these lines. Indeed, two perfect accurate clocks will not continue to show the same time if they came together again after a journey, if one of them had been moving very fast relative to the other. Other might be showing the accurate time, but one of the clock shows 10 minutes ahead. इसका मतलब जो टाइम था वो 10 मिनट आगे चला गया? No, it depends on the moment on which it was measured. From this followed the world's most famous formula, which describes the relation between time, that is mass and energy. E is equal to mc square. This is a very, very good relation between mass and energy that was propagated by Einstein. It became quite famous and it was proved to be right. Yes, in simple things, mass and energy remains constant in this entire universe, cosmos, whatever you say. Mass and energy remains constant. Yes, mass can be converted into energy, energy can be converted into mass, energy can be converted into another type of energy, but you cannot change anything from it, right? If you boil the water, water will become evaporated and go into the air, mix in the air. Yes, do you say the mass disappeared? No, mass तो वही रहा, आपके पतीले में से evaporate होके atmosphere में चला गया, mass change नहीं हुआ, right? So the total mass in the university remains constant. Same way, total energy in the university also remains constant. In this mathematical equation, E stands for energy, M for mass, and C for the speed of light in vacuum, that is total absence of atmosphere, about 300,000 kilometers per second, that is the speed of light in absolute zero atmosphere, that is in vacuum, which is available in the space outside Earth. So students, we stop over here for the day and continue the next lecture. Thank you, students.